Patience while practicing is the most essential part of your practice time. I tell my students that the most successful students, the best students that I have, aren't the ones who have the most talent, the most technical ability, or even the most musicianship. They're the students who are the smartest, the ones who can think through a problem calmly and with patience. Another great thing about patience for me is that if I practice things slowly and I make sure that I learn them at a tempo that I can play them before I try and move to a faster speed that might make me feel excited about myself but not necessarily be perfect, it builds an immense amount of confidence for myself that when I go in and have my performance or my audition, I know that I'm prepared to play a great performance.
It's very important to be patient and resist your ego's desire to go very quickly on an etude too soon. Start slowly, develop as you go along, and remember where your goal is, and you'll get there.
You must be patient when you first start learning a piece of music. You have to allow yourself to go slow, start slow, and resist the urge to just suddenly start performing it. You've got to get the basics down. You've got to learn the notes. You've got to get it in your brain. You've got to get it in your chops, and you've got to get it in your fingers. And you've got to learn it the right way. You have to exert some discipline over yourself. It's really important.
It's very important to play the way you know the etude should be played. I remember many years ago, I was in an audition room for all region tryouts, and a student came up to play and played about twice as fast as everyone else had played the etude. You could hear the other students in the room, ooh, wow, and they thought this was the greatest thing that they had ever heard, but that was not the way the etude was intended to be played, and that student did not fare very well at all. So it's very important to play the way you know that etude is supposed to go.
It's important to start practicing slowly so that you don't make any mistakes, and then eventually work that tempo up to performance tempo. In all regards of practicing, it's important to start from a point of quality where it sounds good, and then expand upon that and make it even better.
Early on, slow is not wrong.
Start at your tempo, no matter how slow it is.
Start slowly.
There is no such thing as too slow.
Quality at a slow tempo will lead to quality at a fast tempo.
Slow is good.
It's very important to never practice mistakes. Make a mistake, stop, start over. If you get used to making mistakes and not letting it bother you, then your performance will never be the level that you would like for it to be.
It is important to practice in such a way that you absolutely minimize your mistakes. But you do not need to be afraid of mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. I've heard the finest players in the world make mistakes. It is part of human nature and it cannot be avoided. But in your practice, you need to minimize those. And I think the perfect saying for this is that practice makes permanent. And whatever you do repeatedly becomes a part of you. So if you practice the mistake over and over and over, it becomes permanent. And then at some point, when you finally decide to fix it, you have to go in with a crowbar and a hammer to tear it out, and it takes so much more time. It makes much more sense to do it right from the beginning.
So when I'm practicing, I always try very hard to make sure that I'm doing it the right way the first time and every time after that. Otherwise, it's too easy to get into the habit of playing it incorrectly.
It is so important not to practice mistakes. The brain is such a powerful tool, and we can use it to or against our advantage. And when you practice something wrong, it remembers it. And when you practice something right, it equally remembers it. So if we can avoid filling our brain up with bad stuff and filling it up with good stuff, then we're that much further ahead.
Musicians are very similar to athletes in their preparation. You must start whatever you're doing slowly, gradually build up. You can't go from step 1 to 10 immediately. You take it one step at a time to get there.
Musicians and athletes have a great deal in common. And the primary difference is that musicians work with small muscles and that we have artistic goals rather than to simply put a ball through a hoop or cross a field goal or to make a field goal. We have artistic goals, and so the muscle control is much, much finer.
If you've ever watched a runner run a race, prior to the race, you'll always see the runner stretch and warm up his muscles. The reason he does that is to get the blood flowing evenly through those muscles so that he won't cramp up or cause trouble for himself during the race. As a musician, it's very important that you keep this in mind, that even though we use smaller muscles, mostly in our face if we're a wind or brass player, we still need to warm them up and make sure that they're ready to perform and be stretched, be used in a difficult way.
And I love weightlifting analogies. The weightlifter wants to bench press 300 pounds. And so they start out and they find out where they are and they say, well, I can only lift 60 pounds. And when they're 60, they don't try to go to 200 pounds. They will go for 65 or 70. And then you have to wait until the muscles develop to go to the next weight limit. And so the same thing is often true with musicians in terms of speed. And rather than lifting weights, we use the metronome. And you find out what tempo you can handle and push it just a little bit, and then you have to wait until things settle in, coordination, possibly strength, and then you can go faster again.
If you're going to go on your first ski trip, you're not going to start your first day on your first set of skis at the top of a black diamond run. You kill yourself. At best, you'd go home with some broken bones and never try skiing again. But if you start on the bunny slope and you take a lesson or two and you start slowly and you learn the basics, you learn how to turn, you learn how to control yourself, your speed, you learn how to fall without hurting yourself, then before you know it, you're going to be able to start going on more difficult runs and you're going to feel in control and you're going to have a lot of fun.